Hello everyone, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we'll discover why Quan's desperate search for Tieu Lac leads him to suspect his own father, and whether he can uncover the truth before she disappears forever. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next episode. Quan stood at the doorway before sunrise, staring at the empty road beyond the farm. The sky was still pale, and a thin layer of mist rested over the fields. Everything around him looked quiet, almost peaceful, but there was nothing peaceful inside his mind. Milou sat near his feet. The dog had been watching him since he woke up, as if she understood that he was preparing to leave again. Quan crouched and gently touched Milou's head. "Stay here," he said. "Guard the house and wait for me." Milou looked toward the road, then back at him. Quan tried to smile. "We'll find her." The promise was meant for Milou, but he needed to hear it too. Since Tieu Lac disappeared, Quan had repeated the same words to himself many times. He would find her. He would bring her home. He would ask why she had left without looking him in the eyes. Yet every day that passed made those promises harder to believe. Quan stood and looked at the house behind him. The shopping bag he had prepared for Tieu Lac was still inside. The gifts remained untouched, exactly where he had left them. He had once imagined her opening the bag, lowering her head, and smiling in that shy way she always tried to hide. Now, every time he looked at the bag, it felt like proof of how suddenly everything had changed. Quan turned away. He could not continue waiting. Tieu Lac needed money. If she refused to return to the farm, she would have to find work somewhere else. She knew the fields, the gardens, and the markets. She was used to physical labor, even when she was tired. That was where he would search. Quan followed the narrow road toward the nearest farming area. The morning air was cold, but the sun was already beginning to rise behind the hills. As he walked, he imagined Tieu Lac somewhere ahead of him. Perhaps she had arrived before sunrise. Perhaps she was standing among other workers, asking quietly if anyone needed help. Perhaps she was only one road away. That thought made him quicken his pace. His first stop was a cucumber garden. The rows stretched across the land in long green lines. Quan entered through the open gate and looked carefully between the plants. "Tieu Lac!" His voice carried across the garden. No one answered. A farmer working near the edge looked up. "Are you looking for someone?" Quan approached and showed Tieu Lac's photograph. "Have you seen her here?" The farmer studied the picture, then shook his head. "I don't think so." "Are you sure? The cucumbers aren't ready yet. We haven't hired extra workers." Quan looked toward the rows again. The farmer was right. The fruit was still small. There was almost nothing to harvest. Tieu Lac would have known that. Quan thanked the farmer and left. For a few moments, the garden had given him hope. Now it was just another place where she was not. He continued toward a bitter gourd garden farther down the road. The place looked neglected. Several vines had dried, and the remaining leaves hung weakly from their frames. No baskets stood near the rows. No workers moved through the garden. Still, Quan entered. "Tieu Lac." Only the wind answered. He walked deeper, checking behind the wooden frames and along the narrow paths. Nothing. Quan stood in the middle of the garden and closed his eyes. Every empty place felt the same. First came the hope, then the silence, then the fear. He told himself not to stop. If Tieu Lac was searching for harvesting work, she would eventually appear somewhere. He only needed to keep moving. The next garden was larger. Several people were picking beans and carrying full baskets toward a shaded area. The moment Quan saw the workers, his heart began to beat faster. From a distance, one woman had long dark hair like Tieu Lac. Quan moved toward her quickly. "Tieu Lac?" The woman turned. It was not her. Quan stopped. "I'm sorry," he said. The woman looked confused, then returned to her work. Quan pulled out the photograph and approached another worker. "Have you seen this woman?" The worker shook his head. Quan asked someone else. Then another person. Most answered quickly. Some looked at the picture for several seconds before saying they did not know. Finally, an older woman studied the photograph carefully. "She looks familiar," the woman said. Quan stepped closer. "Where did you see her?" "I'm not sure. Maybe at the market. Many people come through here." "Was she working in this garden?" "I haven't seen her today." Quan tried to hide his disappointment. "If she comes here, please tell her that Quan is looking for her." The woman nodded. Quan thanked her and walked away. Behind him, the workers continued harvesting. Their baskets slowly filled. For one painful moment, Quan imagined Tieu Lac among them. He pictured her bending down again and again, ignoring her exhaustion because she needed money. That image disturbed him. She had always pushed herself too far. Even at the farm, she had struggled to accept help. She treated kindness as if it were a debt she had to repay. No matter how many times Quan told her she was not a burden, part of her never believed him. Was that why she left? Did she think disappearing would free him from responsibility? Quan kept walking. The sun rose higher and the roads became busier. Farmers carried tools toward the fields. Small vehicles passed with vegetables stacked in the back. Quan stopped anyone who seemed likely to know the temporary workers in the area. Each time he showed the photograph. Each time he asked the same questions. "Have you seen her? Did she ask for work? Was she alone?" Most people knew nothing. A few remembered seeing someone who looked similar, but none could say where she had gone. By midday, Quan's clothes were covered in dust. His throat hurt from calling her name. Still, he refused to return home. He reached another farming area beyond the village. This time, the workers were harvesting fruit. Quan walked through the rows slowly, studying every face. "Tieu Lac." No answer. He imagined her hearing his voice from somewhere nearby and hiding from him. The thought hurt more than the silence. If she was hiding, then she had truly decided that being found was worse than being alone. Quan stopped beside the road and took out her letter. He had carried it with him since morning. The paper was already worn along the folds. He read the lines again. Tieu Lac had thanked him for everything. She had asked him not to look for her. She had written that leaving was the best choice for both of them. Quan stared at the words. "The best choice for both of us," he whispered. But who had convinced her of that? The question had been inside him from the beginning, but now it felt different, sharper, more dangerous. Tieu Lac was afraid of depending on him, but fear alone did not explain everything. She had left at the exact moment he was called back to the city for an urgent meeting. His father had insisted that he return immediately. Quan remembered the phone call. There had been no warning, no explanation beyond the claim that the meeting could not wait. He had believed it. He had left the farm, and while he was gone, Tieu Lac disappeared. Quan folded the letter slowly. For the first time, the timing no longer felt accidental. He looked back toward the empty gardens. Perhaps he had been searching in the wrong direction. Perhaps the truth was not hidden somewhere along these roads. Perhaps it was waiting for him in the city, inside the very family he had never thought he would need to investigate. Quan stood beside the road for a long time, the letter still folded in his hand. The gardens behind him were full of movement. Workers continued carrying baskets. Farmers called to one another. Vehicles passed with vegetables stacked in the back. But Quan no longer heard any of it clearly. His attention had turned toward the city, toward his father, toward the meeting that had pulled him away from the farm at the exact moment Tieu Lac disappeared. He placed the letter back inside his jacket and started walking. This time he was not searching for another field. He was going home. Not because he had given up, because the search had changed. By the time Quan returned to the farm, the sun was already beginning to fall. Milou was waiting near the doorway. The dog stood as soon as she saw him. Quan crouched and touched her head. "I still haven't found her," he said quietly. Millie watched him without moving. Quan looked toward the empty road, hoping for one final second that Tieu Lac might suddenly appear. She did not. He entered the house. The shopping bag was still where he had left it. Quan stopped in front of it. The gifts inside had once represented a simple future, a quiet day, a smile from Tieu Lac, a moment when she would finally allow herself to be cared for without feeling guilty. Now the bag seemed to belong to another life. Quan sat down and placed both hands over his face. Exhaustion settled into his body, but his mind would not rest. He remembered the urgent call from his father. Come back to the city immediately. Quan had asked whether the meeting could wait. His father had refused. At the time, there had been no reason to suspect anything. Important business matters often came without warning, but now every detail felt different. Why had his father insisted so strongly? Why had the meeting lasted only long enough to keep Quan away? Why had Tieu Lac left without speaking to him? And why had she written the letter as though she were protecting him from something? Quan lowered his hands. He needed more than suspicion. He needed proof. Calling his father directly would achieve nothing. If his father was involved, he would deny everything. Worse, he would understand that Quan had begun asking questions. Quan took out his phone and opened the list of people who had attended the meeting. There were company managers, assistants, and several people connected to his father's business network. He remembered one assistant who had arrived late. Another person had repeatedly left the room to take calls. At the time, none of it had seemed important. Now Quan wondered whether someone had been communicating with the farm. He began making notes. What time had he left? Who knew he was returning to the city? Who knew Tieu Lac was alone? Who could have visited her without attracting attention? The more he wrote, the more certain he became that her departure had not been a simple decision made in a few minutes. Tieu Lac had been afraid, but someone might have used that fear. Someone might have told her that staying would destroy Quan's future. Someone might have convinced her that leaving was the only way to protect him. Quan remembered the way his father had spoken about responsibility, reputation, and the life expected of him. His father had never openly accepted Tieu Lac. He had treated her presence as a temporary problem that would eventually disappear. A cold anger spread through Quan's chest. If his father had pressured her, then this was no longer only about where Tieu Lac had gone. It was about what had been done to her. Quan stood. Milou followed him toward the kitchen. He placed food in the dog's bowl, but Milou kept looking at him instead of eating. Eat, Quan said gently. I'm going away for a few days. Milou tilted her head. Quan sat beside her. Do you remember Little Lac? The dog's ears lifted at the name. Quan looked toward the doorway. She's somewhere out there trying to survive alone. His voice became quieter, and I was searching for her without understanding why she was hiding. He placed one hand on Milou's back. I'm going to find the truth first. That night, Quan barely slept. He gathered everything connected to the day Tieu Lac left, the meeting invitation, call records, messages from his father's assistant, the time he arrived in the city, the time the meeting ended, Tieu Lac's letter. He read the letter again, slowly. Her words sounded grateful, but beneath the gratitude was fear. She had written that his life should not be damaged because of her. She had written that he deserved a future free from burden. Those were not words Tieu Lac had invented alone. They sounded too close to the language his father often used. Quan's hands tightened around the paper. Someone had made her believe she was a burden. Someone had taken the insecurity she already carried and turned it into a weapon. By sunrise, Quan had made his decision. He would return to the city. He would not confront his father immediately. First, he would speak to the people who had been at the company that day. He would check whether anyone had left the meeting early. He would find out whether a car had been sent toward the farm. He would review security footage if necessary. He would follow every call, every message, and every movement until he knew exactly what happened, and when he found the truth, he would return for Tieu Lac, not to force her back, not to demand that she trust him, but to give her the truth she had been denied. Quan packed a small bag and placed Tieu Lac's letter inside. Before leaving, he stood in front of the unopened shopping bag one last time. He did not take it with him. The gifts would remain there until Tieu Lac returned. Quan stepped outside. Milou followed him to the road. He crouched and looked into the dog's eyes. Stay here, he said. Guard the house. Milou remained close. Quan touched her head. I'll come back. Then he stood and looked toward the city. The road ahead no longer felt empty. It carried a purpose. Somewhere far away, Tieu Lac was still working, saving every coin, and building a future for the child she believed she had to raise alone. She did not know that Quan had stopped searching blindly. She did not know that his suspicion had turned toward the one person powerful enough to separate them, and Quan did not know how far Tieu Lac had already gone. But as he left the farm that morning, one promise remained clear in his mind. He would uncover the truth behind her disappearance. Then he would find her. No matter where she had gone,